welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. It's your old pal Jake, and I am joined today by my silent co-host, who sometimes stands sentinel during the shows, a Jack Russell Terrier by the name of Bennett. How are you, laddie? There's a thunderstorm out there tonight, and so Bennett, aka Herr Bennett, is joining us. So if I occasionally appear to be reaching down and comforting my foot, that is actually the terrier. How are y'all doing tonight? I'm enjoying the shade and shroud for what we're going to talk about with our first story. How's Zoe? I've heard that she's a good girl. 108 degrees in Nevada. 110 the other day. Firm no thank you. Good Lord. Mars Falcon saying, last night I dreamed I was swimming in an ocean of orange soda, but it was just a fantasy. Well done. Tinkerbell, does it normally hail and storm there? Good God. Talking about Vegas. Or Nevada, I should say. I don't envy you, Foxy. I'll just be honest. I do not envy that weather. That said, the terrier has asked that we move to Nevada, where he is of the belief that there are no storms ever. Let's talk about Mitch McConnell, because he's a bad person. And I'm enjoying his potential downfall. I don't care if it makes me cold. He advocates for genocide. So, he's like a Disney villain. You don't have to feel bad for him. Here we go. Well, Mitch McConnell seems to be suffering some medical issues. Let's just say it. Earlier today, he froze up utterly while doing a press conference, and a hell of a lot can be gleaned from how smoothly it went. It was a well practiced transition from McConnell talking to his various staffers, picking up the ball and making things as smooth as possible. That tells me quite a bit. Mostly it tells me that his people know that there's something wrong with him, that it was the sort of thing they should prepare for. And then, of course, they lied. They lied about if there was anything wrong. And at some point in the future, people will look back on this time and say, what about then? What about that time? Did you realize you were in an authoritarian government at that point? Was it not obvious to their supporters then that they were being lied to all the time? Let's have a look. I'll show you what I'm talking about.
After finishing the NDA this week, has been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of
Yikes.
Okay, Mitch? Anything else you want to say, or should we just go back to your press? Do you want to say anything else to the press? Let's go back.
Go ahead, John.
I'll take it back. Let's go back to you.
Go ahead, John.
And the smooth transition.
So this is we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the IRA, and of course,
we will start with those
Oof. Turn off the autoplay on that. How about that? Let's talk about this a little bit. Mitch McConnell had some sort of a medical issue. Oof, even more. There we are. Mitch McConnell had some sort of a medical issue, obviously. But the guy had a staff ready to react. To me, this tells me that he knew this was coming. And the fact that he didn't walk out and then say exactly what the medical issue was tells me basically...
We'll start with those new comments.
Oh, boy. Well, let's pause on that for a while. Tells me basically everything that I need to know about what he's going to say in the future. He's going to keep lying about this. I don't like picking on people who are unwell. It doesn't make me feel good. But the fact remains that Mitch McConnell, he lies about everything, and he's, I don't know, man. It's just like he is an example of the kind of government we're living in now. Let me go to the other side here. So for context, he's like the ringleader of the Republican Party. The old Republican Party. The kind that did all the same stuff MAGA does, but they put polite wording around it. He was the person that made sure none of the ugliness hit the suburbs. He made sure things got phrased in such a way that it was just boring enough. There was just enough degrees of separation between cause and effect that you could sell it to people in the suburbs, the kind of evil they were doing. And you could convince them that no, you're just voting to cut your own taxes. You're not voting to get black folks killed. No. You're just voting for national security. You're not voting to invade a country that didn't do anything to us. No. You're just voting to have more personal rights. You're not voting to attack the bodily autonomy of women. That was Mitch McConnell. The whole time stealing money from each one of these transactions and putting it in his own pocket. What was wrong with him there? Well, hell. I have no idea. That's the short answer. I don't know what health problems the man has. I can only say that he's in his 80s. He had a doctor ready to speak. He had a doctor ready to act if necessary, right there with him, and he had somebody ready to speak in case he couldn't, and he couldn't. I'd be surprised if he ran again, frankly. But hell, Dianne Feinstein was doing visibly, at least, worse. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I know she's idolized, but let's be real here. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was, Gator would have been a cool nickname, was also doing very poorly when she could have retired in Obama's last term. She chose not to. So it's not like these people won't gamble with our fates. and I wouldn't put it past them, McConnell especially, to make a selfish choice if he thinks he can bleed more out of us. But that said, McConnell is still he comes from the practical generation. So we might see him run again. This will certainly be buried on Fox News. So we don't have to worry about Republicans getting a whiff of the truth. But you've seen it now. And look, his ill health is good news for people that want a free and decent America. I wish nothing but the worst for him. In other words, I hope that either through the action of the voters or God's action, we don't have to deal with Mitch McConnell anymore. Don't feel bad for the Nazis. They have earned our ire. Let's see what you all have to say. Shade Dragon, it's a family business for him. His wife is also a shipping Harris in Taiwan, in charge of international shipping for the U.S. under the Trump admin, if I recall correctly. Oh, yeah, I believe that. His wife was also in a position of power in the U.S. government. It's insane. Shade Dragon, they do fine until they don't. Yeah. Christy Zilkowski, no lips, had a concussion in March, but again, it was a seizure. Yeah, I believe that. Oh, good Lord. Pinkerbell, oh yeah, didn't he fall or something? Yes, he did. He fell, got a concussion, and exactly correct from Zilkowski over there. That's, I think, interesting, though. Interesting to suggest that it was a micro seizure. That would make a lot of sense. Mars Falcon, go away. Mitch, you've done your damage. Yeah, Pinkerbell, he hit his noggin a few weeks ago and was MIA for a bit. And it was almost silent in the press about it. It was bizarre. Christy Zilkowski, you would think with all his money he would have gotten prosthetic lips by now. Yeah, you know, just even some novelty lips from a store would be less creepy than his turtle-like mug. Some of those chattering teeth, maybe. His time out when he talks. He looked like he was rotting from the inside, says Pinkerbell. And he was all bruised up. Well, I mean, his soul has rotted all the way through, so... Yassified Mitch McConnell. Oh, God. Shade Dragon putting it beautifully. Not a joke and a joke at the same time. Yeah. Yeah. That... It kind of hits something that's really made me just furious. If y'all get the sense that every moment of every day, just barely under the surface, I've got just a white hot burning rage, then your senses are working fine. I am my principles, the things that I believe to be true and good, are getting real hard to live by. Because they are in direct conflict with a lot of my other principles, with my admiration of John Brown, for example. I'm delighted that there are clubs named after the guy. I'm delighted that there's subreddits to the guy now. But I have been a fan of him since high school, since I read about Harper's Ferry. Hell yes, John Brown. You're not familiar. Before the Civil War kicked off, in response to the South literally attacking, John Brown went out on his own and tried to begin the end of slavery at Harper's Ferry. I'm furious that the Republican Party has made me the kind of person who will go on the record as seeing an 80-something-year-old man apparently suffer a seizure on live television. It made me the kind of person that looks at that and says, good. But I mean, that is how I feel about it. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that for you. I'm not proud of myself feeling that way, but the fact is, this guy uses every moment of his professional life to make people's lives worse. What else can I say? He's trying to remove democracy in the United States, not just by being weak on Trump, which he is, even though he's one of the Republicans who's not particularly supportive of him. He's doesn't speak out against him all that much, does he? No, he has been in the Senate since the days when the GOP was ordered not to put up poll watchers because they've been involved in voter intimidation. He's pro gerrymandering and anti-rights for people. These are hardly things you can even call political stances. He is just a villain. And more these days, I've been of the belief that you cheapen sympathy by giving it away for free. He doesn't have my sympathy. It's pretty easy to get my sympathy. I've sat in a federal prison visiting room and given my earnest sympathy to somebody serving more than a decade. Not hard to get my sympathy. He's lost it. That is the level of harm this person does. Oh, but hey, we do have further developments that I think will make us feel better. I'm trying to decide. Yeah, let's go with Brian Tyler Cohen. Let's start with MSNBC. How about that? Here was the way I found out about this particular piece of news. It was through Morning Joe. Let me get this set up right now. Oh, that ain't good. There we go. Stand by. Oh, and it's earned the thumbs up. I see I didn't give it this morning. All right, there we go. By the way, folks, if you're enjoying the stream, Lord knows I would appreciate a thumbs up. Yeah, let me wet my beak a little bit. All right. Let's talk about Rudy Giuliani, also suffering quite a bit, and I'm also quite pleased about it. Yeah. There we go. You'd like a preview of Rudy Giuliani's legal defense? Here it is. I did it! That appears to be Rudy Giuliani's legal defense in the defamation case against Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. If you're not familiar, Rudy Giuliani, well, he did the classic, didn't he? See if I can pull this up right here and now. He did the classic move. It looked a little something like this. Who did it? Oh, it was a couple of black guys. Who's responsible for this thing you say happened? Ah, a couple of black folks, drug dealers, probably. That's what Rudy Giuliani did. You know, in The Sopranos, how every time something bad happens and the person who did it doesn't want to own up for it, they blame it on a couple of black guys. Or you know how that happens occasionally in where's that one place? Where's that one place where that oh, America. That's exactly what he did to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. They're suing him for it, and it would appear he has no defense.
Attorney Rudy Giuliani is conceding now that he made false statements about two women who worked the 2020 election in the state of Georgia. That's from a court filing related to a lawsuit filed by the women who alleged they were harassed after Giuliani claimed they committed election fraud. They did not. In the filing, lawyers wrote Giuliani, quote, does not contest that to the extent the statements were statements of fact and otherwise actionable, such actionable factual statements were false. I'll translate that for you. He lied. Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shay Moss have said their lives were turned upside down when conspiracy theorists, as well as then President Donald Trump and his ally Giuliani, made those false allegations.
I mean, did you hear that mealy mouth language? Let's hold on. Defendant Giuliani, for the purpose of litigation only, does not contest that, to the extent the statements were statements of fact and otherwise actionable, such actionable factual statements were false. Boy, I'm gonna have to do some sort of a parody with this because Christ, that's a mouthful. What a way. What a way to live your life. What a way to say you lied. Let's just rip this Band-Aid off.
Against Freeman and her daughter, Rev. We know Ruby Freeman, Shay Moss, they testified before Congress about what they went through when they were blindsided by this, when Giuliani went public, when he went to the Georgia state legislature and made these totally invented claims that they were passing USB sticks between each other, caught on video with voter information. When they came out and said, no, I was passing her a mint, is what we were handing back and forth. But it's deadly serious that people were showing up at their houses, trying to push their way in. We want to find evidence of fraud. They were getting death threats. They quit their jobs. Maybe it was a game to Rudy Giuliani, but it was very real to Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman.
It was very real to these two women, and it was very real to many of those that were the believers of Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani. You must remember, Rudy Giuliani was a federal prosecutor, and after that, mayor of New York, and became America's mayor after 9/11. So someone with that kind of stature, you would not think, if you were some objective American, that why would he just fabricate these two women in Georgia working at the board? He must have some basis for this. You're not talking about an average Joe. This is a former federal prosecutor. And so when people reacted and responded, it really set these women on a course that was, how do they stand up against someone with that kind of stature, even though those of us in New York would have told them he was not all of that anyway. I mean,
this case is what got me realizing that we need actual, genuine, criminal consequences for this. I realize that Giuliani might be going to prison for January 6th. That's not enough. It's simply not enough. Good news if we can force our Department of Justice in the U.S. to actually be worth a damn. He's just admitted he lied. But we need some prosecution. This is probably not stochastic terrorism, because the intent of this might not have been to encourage violence. But this is right up there with the stochastic terrorism. I believe with a lot of the folks that Telltale Fireside Chat talks about, for example, the preachers, I believe they are trying to get violence done against this group of people. They need to be prosecuted as terrorists. However, Giuliani's conduct here, this has got to be at a minimum reckless endangerment. And as a society, we need to acknowledge that officially. We need to set the standard. When we say that we need to raise the bar in the United States, this is the kind of thing we're talking about. We need to define what behavior is unacceptable. We need to make it clear in a courtroom, not through civil lawsuits, but from our collective representation in the form of the U.S. Department of Justice. We need to make it clear that this behavior was criminal and that anybody who does it is violating the law. They are violating the rules we agree to live by. You don't tell lies about people that you know will endanger them for the sake of political gain. You cannot do that. He's just admitted he knew he was lying. I think any reasonable person would expect that those lies would be endangering Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. If we do not want our elections to become a clown show, this needs to be handled as a criminal matter. In the VOD, there will be a link in the description. I recommend you tell the DOJ that's how you feel too. Let's see what the Wicked community has to say. Ooh, the Mike's Dead show. We need to link this to Trump. Oh, I agree. If I'm honest, I think that is one of the things that will fall outside the purview of the DOJ. I think we need to link it to Trump culturally. Why not in a legal sense? Because Trump is already going to be in court for essentially this broadly. Hi, Rabin Sapita. Good to see you. Good evening. Did I delete that? Oh, I hope not. Stand by while I look up something of personal importance. Hi, Robin. Let me take another whack at that. I have saved the pronunciation of your name. Hi, Robin. Good to see you. Shade Dragon. Styx will be on shortly. He is stalking. He is talking to the thing that spawned him. Not everyone likes their parents, and sometimes there's reason for that. Fair enough. Good to see you, Robin. Pinkerbell, didn't he already get his law license revoked, or did he skate on that? I thought he did. Yeah, he is under it's under threat in multiple jurisdictions though. So I don't know the most recent, but I think it has to be whoopsie daisy more than what we've seen. It can't just be you're not allowed to be amongst the fanciest of the fancy any longer. It's got to be, the kind of punishment you and I would get if we did this behavior in the street. If we pointed at somebody and said, that person just robbed the bank down the street. They're armed. Get them quickly. Look out, they're dangerous. We would. It was just some random person who was not armed, who did not do anything at all, and we were just doing it to distract from an awkward conversation we didn't want to have. Somebody says, hey, are you the one that took my yogurt out of the fridge? That person's trying to get you. Look out. Those kinds of consequences. You and I would do some jail time over that. Rudy Giuliani, we need whether he actually goes to jail or gets an additional fine or has to do something as simple as community service, we need the U.S. government to acknowledge that he endangered people's lives. We got to start there. Scott Ward with the very kind $5. Thank you, sir. Centralized information leads to centralized government power. With untethered info, wireless communications, it's impossible to establish credibility. I don't know that I agree with that. I would like you to expand. By no means do we need another super chat, but yeah, expand on that a little bit, because I think it's entirely possible to establish credibility with wireless communications. I just think it would be the same way we do it with televised communications. It's just not. It's difficult. I'll grant you that, and it becomes more difficult because there is more information. But I think if you stop going from the mentality of everything that I want to hear, I assume is true, until thoroughly proved otherwise, and you switch to the mentality of everything I hear is not true until I prove it, then I think it works. Shade Dragon, so he should need to pay most of his wages to other people and work a drive-through window with no health care for the rest of his natural life. Yeah, I think that's the real solution we should do. What we discovered during the pandemic, let me just sip my sarcastic tea here. What we discovered during the pandemic is that sometimes essential workers, their jobs put them in danger, and we need them to do the job. And since we're not willing to raise the federal minimum wage to a living wage, or even a living wage or a thriving wage, we got to figure out how we're going to get this work done. We also discovered that Republicans are, in fact, willing to let crops rot on the vine rather than have any brown people in the country at all. So we need those jobs done, too. I think you bring up a good solution here. If we need just a flood of people, like a lot of bodies, basically, to do this unpleasant work, what we should do is make that the sentences that Republican criminals get, because there's a hell of a lot of them. Hell, we got thousands with January 6th. Good Lord. Make that the sentence. You have to go do real work for the first time in your life, and you got to do it in lieu of being in prison, and you'll hate it worse than prison. In prison, you would get to sing the national anthem with your golden cow, Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene will come and visit you and tell you you're a hero if you go to prison. But if you got to work like a real job, you actually have to be of use. You actually have to be productive. Then Marjorie Taylor Greene will storm in, give you a complicated drink order, refuse to tip you, vote against your health care improving, and then call you a rhino when you say that she hasn't done anything to help. I think that's a good fitting punishment for this filth. Folks, if it doesn't surprise you too badly, I'm not a fan of these people. Paul Atkinson with the very kind $5. Thank you so much, sir. Oh, that is. Let me do a plug here, as long as we're at it. Those are our friends over at the True North Eager Beaver podcast. Paul is Mr. Grizzly, and it's a phenomenal show. Check it out if you want this sort of vibe, but significantly less twitchy. But you want this sort of vibe in the mornings, then I would say subscribe to the True North Eager Beaver podcast. In fact, what the hell? They're good lads. Subscribe anyway. Just knock up their subscriber numbers. Let me tell you something. Something magical happens when you get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. They are admittedly on many platforms, so their audience is spread out. But let's build them up on YouTube. I want to see more of the True North guys. Oh, mercy me. Let's whoopsie. Let's see what Brian Tyler Cohen had to say about this. One of the things I appreciate about this young lad, Brian Tyler Cohen, who is now an MSNBC correspondent, or not correspondent, what is it? Contributor. His ability to gather guests is astounding. His ability to pull people who are going to be relevant to the conversation, and frankly, just interesting voices to hear from, is like tip top. Let's have a look. I'm going to start this off with more praise for Brian Tyler Cohen. As I was just telling the Wicked Senate, those are the folks watching in the live stream, what I like about Brian Tyler Cohen is that he pulls like the perfect guest or the perfect co-host or whatever for any given situation. We have that again, and I want to keep talking about Giuliani because I think this is just admitting what he did. I think it's a bigger deal than most people give it credit for. Or rather, it's going to be, it's going to come and go in the news cycle so quickly. For one thing, McConnell just had that health scare. By the way, Paul Atkinson. One of the, I think, did all of us agree? I'll have to rewatch the interview we did together. I'm kind of proud of that one. But did all of us just agree that McConnell was the worst? I think it might have been. We at least had 2 out of 3. Let's toast, my friend, to the betterment of the world through the Grim Reaper's slow-moving hand. But anyway, this is not going to stick in the news all that long. Giuliani admitting that he lied about Ruby Freeman and Shane Moss, but it's a much bigger deal than I think it's going to earn in terms of media time. And the reason it's a bigger deal has been mentioned in previous segments on this. The guy is a former prosecutor. He understands when he has a case and when he doesn't. The implications of this lie reach into every other January 6th related case. Rudy Giuliani was also the guy who was the go-between for a lot of the fake electors in the individual states and D.C. He and John Eastman are right up there with Trump in terms of culpability for January 6th and the fake elector plot leading up to it. His willingness to lie about this will come up. His admission to lying about this will come up in court cases revolving around the coup. So understanding the ins and outs of this will tell you a tremendous amount about, it's like looking into a crystal ball. It's going to tell you a hell of a lot about how these things are going to function the closer and closer we get to actual court appearances. Right now, what we have from Trump, arraignments, indictments, All the it's like the justice system is a cat getting ready to pounce. This is the arraignment and indictment stage. This is the eyes getting big, pupils dilating, the tush wiggling before it pounces. When we get to the pounce stage, I think you're going to hear missives coming off from Donald Trump's side of things that look a lot like what Giuliani just did. Just said. Let's have Brian Tyler Cohen break it down.
You're watching the legal breakdown. So, Glenn, we've got some major news about Rudy Giuliani. He conceded that he did make defamatory statements about Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman, the Georgia poll workers who testified for the January 6th committee. Can you give a breakdown of what happened here?
Yeah, so this is kind of a shocking admission coming in the middle of a defamation lawsuit brought by Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, two Georgia state election poll workers who were just savaged by the lies of Rudy Giuliani and of Donald Trump. For Rudy Giuliani to file something in that case saying, yes, I admit I lied about Shay Moss, about Ruby Freeman, and those lies were defamatory, he has basically given up 95% of what Ruby and Shay would have to have proven in order to hold him liable for the defamation. So, I mean, this really is a blockbuster admission by Rudy Giuliani and his attorney, though not at all surprising, because we saw Rudy Giuliani lie over and over and over again to the.
First of all, Glenn Kirshner is one of the sharpest cats around. We've featured the legal breakdown on here, and we've also just featured clips of this guy talking on guest appearances. He talks, I mean, he cuts right to the heart of it here. There's no case. A wise man by the name of Edward Dregelis once told me of lawyers and frankly life in general. Don't wreck yourself trying to defend an untenable case. And after I looked up what untenable means, it means don't defend a case that can't be defended. Don't defend ground that you simply cannot hold. You're wasting what resources you have. A court of law, it sort of distills life down to the bare, brutal facts. I hear a lot of people, for example, complain about criminals with slick defense attorneys. But if you listen to the slick defense attorneys, it's not like they jangle keys over here while making you not look at reality. They are under the same pressures that the prosecution is. They have to do everything that they do within what they can prove with the facts, with evidence, and without soft-shoeing nonsense. So when a defense attorney is looking at what Giuliani said and what facts he had available and what facts the prosecution can demonstrate, when they've already had a look at what is called discovery, where each side gets to, in this poker game, each side gets to look at the other side's cards. They've already done that process. They have an idea of what the case against them is. They make some hard decisions like this. And Glenn Kirshner has absolutely nailed it. It's in the wise words of this fella, not Kirshner, but a Lithuanian lawyer. It's an untenable case. Now, the implications. You're going to be hearing a lot more things like this. like they've just given up on major things that the prosecution would have to prove. If you'll recall, I have called these cases easy. I have, despite all the talking heads on the internet saying, well, you got to give X a ton of time. You got to give Y a ton of time. It's a very difficult thing to demonstrate that X or Y or whatever, A, B, and C, did these various crimes. And then we get to court and they just toss in the towel immediately. Reason why is because they did them blatantly and without any tact. They did them in front of cameras, and the lies were obvious when they told them. So they're actually not all that hard to prove. It actually doesn't take all that much effort, and they're not even bothering to defend them.
The extreme
they can't.
detriment of those two women, both of whom testified before the January 6th committee, and they related in painful, excruciating detail the damage that Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump did to their lives.
Now, Giuliani is saying that he defamed them, but it didn't cause damages. So is he basically just trying to evade financial penalties here because causing damage is one of the tenets that has to be proven in a defamation case?
Yeah, Brian, on the one hand, he's trying not to give up the entire farm in the litigation by saying, well, sure, I lied about them. Sure, these lies were defamatory, but, they didn't really suffer any damages. So he wants to fight on the battleground of how bad his lies were, how dangerous, how damaging to their emotional well-being, their pain and suffering, their financial prospects.
Boy, that's going to be a hell of a battleground for him. These, thank God, are black women in the United States of America. First of all, black women, generally speaking. Yeah, that's always a healthy thing to do as a white broadcaster. But let me do a quick message to the black gals out there. Thank you for constantly pulling this freaking country out of the gutter. You get not enough credit, in my opinion, for being the voting bloc which consistently, if you just measure the number of voters, consistently saves us. You make the difference in all kinds of elections. Most recently, Georgia. The demographic that voted a Senate majority into power for the Democrats. You pull us out of the gutter time and time again. But that is because the reason, to say that this demographic tends to vote Democrat so much is because they tend to suffer the absolute worst of what America has to offer. You want to get ignored in the hospital by doctors who think you're lying about your pain? Be a black woman. You want to have people just assume you're doing a crime when you walk through a grocery store? Be a black woman. You want Rudy Giuliani to call you a drug dealer when you hand your daughter a freaking mint? Be a black woman. You want to get death threats because Giuliani is using you as a scapegoat in a morbid parody of American life. Just really boiled down to the problem. Be a black woman. Be Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. So I think they're going to have a pretty easy time when they play the messages and they show the emails and when they show witness testimony of people saying, yeah, I was their neighbor, and yeah, there's a bunch of strange people coming down the cul-de-sac or wherever the hell it is they live. trying to force their way into their home. I think they're going to have a pretty easy time proving that Rudy Giuliani made their lives worse and put them in physical danger with his lies, which he has already admitted to.
Of being employed gainfully in the future. And here's the question that I have to ask. If these two victims, right, Ruby and Shay, if they were wealthy white women of means,
Boom.
would Rudy have been saying, you know what, I may have lied about these two women, but
Boom.
come on, they didn't suffer any damages. One of the things he said about them over and over again, when, you know, the video of the vote counting was disclosed, he said, look at them. They look like drug dealers, don't they? Kind of surreptitiously moving these papers around, when in fact it was proven by authorities over and over again, all these two women were doing was what they were supposed to be doing, counting votes and putting them precisely where they were supposed to put them. Rudy accused them of looking like drug dealers, doing something dirty. Would he have done that if these were two wealthy white men or women of means, of influence, with some connection, with some power? I venture to say not. So what Rudy did to those two women is despicable in so many ways. And boy, I hope they take every penny this little lying man may have left.
Yeah.
Look at this here.
Want another super nacho?
Oh, they've been sitting too long. The cheese is all sweaty.
This guy in the joint, crazy Rasta fuck, used to make grilled cheese on the radiator. He put the bread between two sheets of paper. Had a whole system.
What'd you do to your foot?
The other night, fucking Irvington, two black guys jumped me outside a bar.
With half of them locked up making grilled cheese, you'd think there wouldn't be so many around to make trouble.
Should I melt another batch?
Nah, I'm good. I got dinner in the city.
If you're not familiar with The Sopranos, it wasn't a couple of black guys. And if you're not familiar with America, that is a very common excuse that white crooks use to cover up their crimes. Blame it on a couple of black people. Call them drug dealers, disparage the whole community. Really lean into the biases that people like Ron DeSantis bend over backwards to make sure exist. We will have to have a larger reckoning with all of this, with American culture as a whole. We are at war over the American soul right now. What is it? Is it fundamentally decent, or is it fundamentally evil? Both sides know the truth of these allegations deep down. You know, both sides know that Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss didn't do anything. Democrats and Republican leadership, they know this. Ron DeSantis knows that trans people are no danger. Gay people are no danger to anyone. And I suspect that their voters know this as well. So we're in this Cold War that we've been in since we finished the last Cold War. If I'm honest, you might even argue that we're in this Cold War that we've been in since the end of the Civil War. Will America become an honest country or not? It hasn't been. And we're finally having a reckoning with that. We don't have a choice. It's been just like the Civil War. we avoided it until it was thrust upon us. Y'all don't recall the first shots of the Civil War were fired by the South. Again, it's been thrust upon us. And we're now in the age of drones and intercontinental missiles. It's simply not practical to load up our muskets and fire cannons and whatnot at each other. It's not. But we're having the argument that we've always had. Are black people humans? Do they deserve the same rights as white people? We know what the answer is. The war is over. Are we going to act like it? Are we going to be decent? Or are we going to just keep doing whatever it is we think we can get away with? This time, I think the good guys are going to win. Let me tell you the strategy necessary to win, once and for all. The people who are pushing this nonsense, I'm talking Ron DeSantis as well as Rudy Giuliani. I'm talking Greg Abbott, who puts razor-wrapped barrels in the Rio Grande. They need to be punished. We need to demonstrate that we will not have our Goebbels walk free. We will not have our Himmler treated like he was any other citizen. They need to be punished. That means it falls on the decent people of the United States to band together and overwhelmingly put decent people in power. I'm not even asking for heroes, just decent people. We need the House, we need the Senate, and we need the White House. I've said it maybe every stream for the last couple of months. I'm going to be saying that just about every stream, all the way up until we get it. That's the prescription. We need overwhelming majorities. Nah, we just need majorities. It would be much easier with overwhelming majorities. The more work we do now, the less we'll have to do later, but we won't have to do no work later because we've learned another lesson. We have learned that we need to then push the people we put into power to actually take steps to protect Americans. They won't if we allow them to shirk their responsibilities. So we need majorities in the House and the Senate, and then we need the White House as well. In 24, we have an opportunity to do this. Start work now. Find everybody you know who gives a damn about decency and make the case to them that this must be done. After we get that, folks like you and me, that's when our work will be kicked into overdrive. Because we're going to take a lesson from MAGA. And we are going to push these people to actually hold scum like Giuliani, like DeSantis, like Greg Abbott, like Donald Trump, like John Eastman, actually hold them accountable. If laws need to be made that make these people's behavior up until this point illegal, then we'll make them. If their behavior already was illegal, then we will ensure those laws are enforced. But this must be the end for this kind of casual evil. (2024). The more work you do now in 2023, the easier time you'll have of it in 2024. The more work you do in 2024, the easier time you're going to have in 2025. The more you accomplish in 2025, the more America gets used to being run well. And we can put these people where they belong. First in a prison cell, and then in the history books. Let's see what the wicked community has to say. The anti-corporatist and incorruptible representatives, absolutely. I think and the anti-corporatists, let me also just pause and say, I love your comments, man. You often put things like just 15 degrees off what I'm thinking, and it makes me very happy. It gives me something to chew on. You say, and incorruptible representatives. I think I mostly agree with you. Where I skew somewhat is that I want representatives that are afraid of me and you and the average voter, the anti-corporatist. So we're screwed. I want ones who get nervous when they anger us. Much when I say take a lesson from MAGA, that's what I'm talking about. I want our representatives to know they've got no chance of getting reelected if they make us angry. I think, and I've been down on TYT for good reason of late, but credit where it's due. I think having Justice Democrats in power, for example, is going to be huge. People who are they don't take money from super PACs, for example, other than the Wolf PAC. If you're not familiar with that, it basically just donates to people that don't take money from any other PAC. But the incorruptible is something people can pretend to be, and in my opinion, nobody actually is. So I'd rather understand what they're afraid of, and I want to be it. Groove Dragon, ooh. Lurking but triggered by the thought of our nation divided. I know where the healing will come from. Progressives to the breach. Hell yeah. Paul Atkinson, they need to pay for their crimes against humanity, the Constitution, and the damage they've done to your nation on a global scale. Yeah. Yeah, and truth be told, this is a hard thing to say, but I think to some degree, I'd like our allies, like Canada, for example, Canada is to America like what Superman is to Batman. Like they are like it's unthinkable to us that Canada would go against anything we have to say. And I think we could do with some of our allies sanctioning us for our harm to the world. We are a massive polluter right now, and the average American sees no consequence for it. We see only benefit. And I would encourage you and anybody else watching from around the world to ask your representatives to sanction us. Think of it less like us becoming, less like treating us like an enemy and more like treating it like an intervention. We need it. We need the intervention. We have to start suffering consequences for the behavior, which is, as you put well, it's destructive to ourselves and it's destructive to the rest of the world. So I would encourage that from folks around the world. Ask your government to sanction the United States. Number one, for its apartheid state that we're in, and number two, for the harm we are doing to everybody, including ourselves. We're like a drunk bus driver, just can't have it. The anti-corporatist, sorry, but I was over at the letter hack, and then I was in the middle of the desert with no signal. Oh no. Anti-corporatist, oh my God, today, and it was just off about the organized theft rings, robbing Nordstrom's for Gucci bags, or some such. Or Anna was going off today. Yeah, she's gone. I don't know what's up with her. It's depressing, whatever it is. Ooh, Scott Ward, please read Understanding Media, The Extensions of Man by Marshall McLuhan. It explains what's happening now, but was written in the 60s. Well, my friend, nobody comment for a second, says the guy that doesn't know how to pump up the algorithm. Okay, comment again. All right, I've copied that down. I am going to look that up. I'm looking for some... I am looking for some educational material. By the way, if you guys... Shade Dragon, Anna Kasparian. She's the co-host of The Young Turks, and she's been just going down a real right-wing rabbit hole. I'm looking for stuff to read. I want to get educated so that I can offer you guys a plan of action that has a little bit more historical proving behind it. I've been reading about Chile a lot lately, but I think I've mined that for about as much as I can. Oh, Groove Dragon. Let's see. My representative is Lauren Boebert. She doesn't take my calls anymore. Oh, and pinned comment of the day goes to Groove Dragon. Good egg, this one. Very good egg. Start writing her. I'm delighted. Scott Ward, the camera is an extension of the eye, speaker an extension of the ear. The electrical grid is an extension of the central nervous system. Well, that's an interesting way to put it. My word. Oh, I'm almost tempted to do a bonus. I'm almost tempted. I still very much feel still very much feel the need to dunk on the GOP. And I think I owe you one because I missed 2 on Tuesday. That said, it was a productive day because I have I think I finally got Pixel Progressives back up to looking like something that won't embarrass the rest of the channel with its low quality. Y'all saw the early stuff. It was fine, but it was awfully, it was a little rough. So it's still looks like a guy that spends 90% of his day reading about politics did it, but now it definitely looks like the other 10% is practicing animation a little bit. Anyway, I enjoyed hanging out with you today. I enjoyed the fact that Mitch McConnell has suffered some kind of ill that will appear to be taking him out of power, one hopes. And I mostly enjoyed the fact that Rudy Giuliani understands that his case is so weak against Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss that he has to just admit to the worst of it up front and then try to do damage control. I also believe that this is going to have a massive impact on court cases to come. Donald Trump will unfortunately be a massive figure in the history books when we talk about the United States. He will unfortunately be a big part of the conversation about what changed America. However, even though we can't change that fact, what we have control over now is what Donald Trump kicked off. Was it America's decline? Or was it America's eventual, long-delayed rise? We're going to decide that next year. Until next time, which will be tomorrow at 9 p.m., This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake.